Oh, it's great.
You are
I'm feeling
complete
so
nerds.
good now. I'm telling you, I moved south for like a hot second, even for one episode, and I just feel so much more or less stress here.
South? You're in Delaware.
I know. I'm not all the way down in Virginia like you are, but
Tyler, I didn't realize that President Joe Biden was from the South.
Yeah, Mike.
All right,
he is. Listen,
he's south.
We're all from New Jersey. We're all literally from New Jersey.
Right, so like
yes,
everybody's south of you.
What's your? It's south of me.
Oh my
Absolutely.
God!
I didn't say I went that far south. I went south. That's what I said.
All right. Well, welcome in everybody. Welcome in, fools. Welcome to the Fantasy Fools podcast. I am Tyler Scott. I am joined by two just really big fools after that. Jordan Patrick and Michael Sean.
I'm wrong.
Yeah. How you guys doing today?
And the biggest fool of us all, Tyler Scott.
I already said myself.
You can't forget yourself here. I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. I mean, we're getting a good start to the weekend. I'm sorry for the late recording of the podcast, but you know what? It's a Thursday here. I'm sure you guys will be hearing this on Friday. But you know what? I'm ready for another good week of football coming up. I know it's going to be a Pro Bowl. It means absolutely nothing. But you know what? I was watching a little bit of the talent show, I guess. Well, I don't know what they even call it, but
skills.
CJ Stroud still the skills competition. CJ Stroud is even killing that against Pro Bowlers.
Is that going on right now?
It was going on at the bar.
Oh. All right. Well, I didn't know that.
All right. I didn't know that it was tonight. You know?
Yeah, there was an accuracy passing competition that CJ Stroud was.
I will say that part's fun to watch.
It was cool. It made me realize I can't do shit.
Yeah, quarterback's kind of the only position you can really do like a skills like fun thing like that. You know, I mean, I suppose you can try and bring Justin Tucker and give him targets on the field. You know, be like, all right, hit it.
Yeah, there's only so many times you can have a running back run between like I guess like sticks that are standing up like you do in a dog competition. I don't know. Like, what do you do?
What do you do?
But yeah, so unfortunately this weekend there is no good football. And sadly, the following weekend is the last weekend of regular season. Actually, just football in general.
Of football season.
But also
the 2023 season.
Very sad.
So sad.
And now we got another, 20 months until next season?
That's what it feels like.
No, not 20 months. Oh, my God.
20 months.
6.
You got that right.
5. Yeah.
Oh, geez. It's February. It's not going to start again until what? September. So you got August, 7 months.
Yeah, 7 months. But anyway,
getting excited for 2024 fantasy season.
August is like training camps,
months
right?
ago.
Yeah, I've been excited for 2024 season 3 months ago, Jordan.
Yeah.
20 months ago.
I finished my 2023 draft and I was like, 2024, let's go.
Yeah, I drafted my 2024 team in 2022. So what up? Anyway, let's get into
Is that how you did that?
Let's get into it. Today we're going to cover our last week of our trifecta, move into our conference round. Our conference round games and recap those, go into our Super Bowl round and just talk about that a little. And then we're going to end the day with our top 3 surprising facts of the 2023 fantasy football season. Obviously, no Duel of the Fools this week, but we will cover it next week for the Super Bowl. Anyway, getting into the trifecta, we've got our conference final trifecta, and I'm going to start off with my surprise of the week, and that is David Montgomery. I mean, I know we talked about this last episode, and we all discussed, hey, who is our duel going to be, and who are we going to go for? Who is going to get that running back higher percentage? And Mike and I both agreed that it was going to be Jahmyr Gibbs because they needed that run game or passing game, and it turned out to be David Montgomery, 93 yards, 1 tutty. Definitely surprised me. I was thinking Jahmyr was going to be the head dog there.
Oh, I thought the same thing. I mean, I really thought that Jahmyr was going to be the one who was actually going to be leaned on. But Jordan, I think you were 100% right. David Montgomery, he just looked a little bit more hard-nosed, a little bit better with just breaking through tackles. Jahmyr was just mostly stopped, which I stand by my statement from previous podcast. I still stand by the talent of Jahmyr Gibbs, but David Montgomery, 100% had a good game.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they both were pretty effective. Monty played well. Definitely showed he was a vet in his ability there.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I will say, I think they both had a good game. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs had the one bad fumble. Absolutely, right. I can't defend that one, right? But they still put up decent statistics for both of them. Montgomery was by far the better player, though. I will admit that. But I'm going to stick to the same game. And for my surprise of the week, I honestly don't know if you can get much more surprising than my surprise of the week. I mean, you're talking about a player who's been pretty much next to nothing all season. Went in with a lot of hype, high draft capital, didn't really get anything out of him as far as production goes the entire season. And then all of a sudden he rips off not one, but 2 touchdowns. And I'm talking about the one, the only Jameson Williams for the Detroit Lions. He opened up the drive, opened up the game for the Lions with a 42-yard carry for a touchdown and rushing. And then that's when, everybody thought, oh my God, the Lions might be rolling here. That's when I thought. And then later on at the end of the game, he even caps off the game with another receiving touchdown. He finished the game with 2 receptions for 25 yards and another tutty. 2 touchdowns by Jameson Williams. That shocks the hell out of me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I am with you. That was definitely surprising, especially being the open play. Was, I think, a little bit more caught me off guard. I didn't expect that. I think it just goes to show that they're going to integrate this guy in their offense next year. He's a Swiss Army knife. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball. I think we're starting to see maybe the cusp of a dynamic duo in Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams.
Yeah, Jameson Williams is definitely someone who went into the season like, oh man, like kind of looks like a bit of a bust. He's not as effective as people were hoping, but way to show up in the playoffs and show up when it really mattered.
So I want to bring up this question though. Do you actually think Jameson Williams, this is a foreshadowing of what could be coming and he's going to be a breakout candidate next year? Or do you think that they're kind of saying, hey, we realize this kid has talent, but we don't really trust throwing him the ball? Because they really have worked up runs for him and he only gets 2 or 3 looks a game. And I think this might be his first, maybe his second rushing touchdown or receiving touchdown of the year.
I think he'll get a bump.
I do too. I just think he's become a key part of their offense in those sticky situations. I think their coaches, Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, they're going to see that, and they're going to use him. I don't think he's going to be a huge breakout like number 1 fantasy pick, but I think he's going to be used more and provide more value.
See, I have less confidence than you guys. I will admit that. But I mean, hey, I hope you're right. I mean, I just traded for him against Utah.
Man. Well, for me, my surprise, I got Zay Flowers. Yeah, I know some people are probably pretty pissed off if you're a Ravens fan with that fumble he had. But he had 5 receptions for 115 yards, had 1 touchdown. Kind of bring him up here because he averaged 12.9 fantasy points, and then he would have had over 20 this week. So he had an awesome week. I think, speaking of rookie receivers, I think maybe he's on my list of people to watch in the draft next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he carried their offense for what little offense they had.
Yep.
He was a huge part. And that fumble, that killed him. But it's football. It happens.
Yeah.
The fumble was huge. I think, honestly, the taunting play was even worse.
That rookie shit.
They were within. They were what? I want to say they were within the 10 for sure, but they may have been within the 5. And him just standing over him, showboating. Like, I'm not a fan of that in the NFL in general, and just to see it have such a big impact on the game overall, it's just like part of me says, you know what, you deserved it, but part of me is like, God, how do you make a play in a call like that affect so much,
Yeah. I mean, that's the rules. And, players, they got to keep their egos in check. But going on to a guy who does not have an ego as my consistent of the week, surprisingly, I am the same consistent back-to-back weeks. And again, it's Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, ooh. Mr. Consistent, CCC. He just continues to dominate the league. He's not a young guy anymore. 27, I believe, going on 28. I I mean, even last game against the Lions, 90 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns with 42 yards in the air. When is he going to stop?
He doesn't. He can't stop. He won't stop.
Man,
you got that. You got that, Ty.
I think, and he's playing so well that, like, why wouldn't I want him on my fantasy team next year? Yeah, he's aging, but he's not slowing down.
I know. And you know what? Will he, he's a great receiving running back?
He's great.
I don't know when he's going to stop, because even if he slows down rushing, he's still a great pass catcher.
I'll be honest.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, sorry. No, Jordan, finish your thought. I just want to come back to something now.
On Christian McCaffrey, the thing about him that makes him a little bit different is there's certain players that are really good running backs. Christian McCaffrey is just a great football player, period.
Yeah.
Like, he can do it all.
That's a great point, Jordan. I think you're right. He's a tremendous talent, and he knows the game. He's smart, and he knows when to do certain things, and he's capable of doing it all. He's not just an excellent rusher. He's not just an excellent pass catcher. He has the vision to basically see openings before they come up, and he goes right through them, and he's got the power to break through and actually break some tackles too. I mean, he's just an overall great football player. I think you said that very well. I'll say this. This is my point that I was trying to come back to. I mean, in a dynasty league, Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion, is one of the scariest players to have or to look at in your leagues, because you obviously see how great he is. And Father Time is undefeated against everybody in every sport. When do you expect a drop off? Because looking at this performance, looking at this year, you can't say it's next year.
Right.
But how much are you willing to trade to get him, or how much are you looking for to get rid of him? Or do you want to get rid of him? Like, he's the scariest person in a dynasty league to me.
Yeah, he really is. And this is I don't know. If you're an owner, do you sell him low or do you sell him high? I mean, I could see it both ways. After a number one running back season, I think people are going to stick to him, but he definitely is a guy that if you can get him low, I would definitely put a claim in for him, but I don't think you're going to get him low.
I'll be honest, I'm among the party to where if I have him in a dynasty league, I'm probably looking to shop him after this year. And I probably am not willing to take anything under probably 2 first-round pick, maybe 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks and a playable player.
Yeah.
That's my thought. But I mean, again, you're talking about one of the greatest, in my opinion, of our generation. So, I mean, he's going to end up being one of the GOATs. But I got to move on to my consistent player, who is not quite as consistent as Christian McCaffrey, but I will say he's been Mr. Consistent for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm talking their only wide receiver who is worth mentioning, Rashee Rice. Now, I'm not sitting here saying he's Mr. Consistent because he had a fantastic game, but he just shows up. He can play. He can catch the ball. He's open, and he gets the first downs when needed, and he's just there. And now, he didn't have a performance that was outstanding, right? We're talking last week, he had 8 receptions, 46 yards on 9 targets. Basically, what that's saying is you caught pretty much every ball thrown your way, and you did enough to just stay relevant in the game, but you were available. You were 9 targets. The only person who was targeted more than him was Travis Kelce.
Yep.
That's it. If you're in that company, I'd say that's worth it.
Who went like 11 for 11 on targets. It was nuts. Unreal game. But going on to, my consistent of the week, I picked Isaiah Pacheco, averaged 15.3 PPR, would have had 18.2 this week. So right around there. He had 68 yards rushing and 1 touchdown. Exactly what you're hoping for him if you got him in your lineup. It's not surprising, but it's not disappointing. So that's why I picked him.
Yeah, I think he was definitely a consistent player in the postseason. And I definitely think he's been a consistent player in the fantasy league. So, yeah, I think he has been consistent, and he's been a consistent part of that Chiefs offense.
Absolutely.
Sticking on that Chiefs train, my disappointment of the week is actually I think you guys might be a little surprised, but I know we've talked a lot about this on the podcast. My disappointment is Patrick Mahomes. And I will say the reason why I'm disappointed, and I know that the Ravens have a really good defense, but he only had 241 yards and 1 touchdown. I expected more. And even in just the postseason in general, Patrick Mahomes has not, I would say, not entirely showed up. He's been okay, but he's not been that superstar GOAT contender that everyone seems to think.
I think you're right. Sorry, Jordan. I think you're right. I just think I think this offense is no longer considered the Pat Mahomes offense. It's now they've tried working their way into being a dual threat, and Isaiah Pacheco has made Pat Mahomes' life a lot easier in that regard.
Well, I think it's a matter of they did realize a little bit that they can't lean on Pat Mahomes too much. At some point, you have to face the reality of, like, if you lean on one player too much, if he gets hurt, you're fucked. So, like, I mean, right. I think Pat Mahomes maybe last season missed a couple games, and they kept going. They played pretty well without him, and they got some wins. Now, I just think that Tyler's right, though. At the end of the day, he's not that. The Chiefs' offense doesn't have that. We're just going to outscore the shit out of you.
Yeah,
and like do what you can.
Yeah, he's definitely not the player that you expected him to be this season.
Oh, as someone who drafted him in the first round,
they just don't have the weapons they used to. They don't have a Tyreek Hill. They don't have,
Maybe he shouldn't have taken a $200+ million contract, and they could have gotten weapons. I don't know.
Maybe.
I hate to say it, you lowballed that. He signed a $500 million contract.
Exactly. Thank you for reinforcing.
Man,
I mean, listen,
over
Pat
10
Mahomes,
years.
I do. You're right. It is over 10 years, but I do think Pat Mahomes is going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I really do believe that.
Greatest.
Yes, it's too early to say that, but he is up there in conversation. But I will say this. I do agree. He didn't show up as much for fantasy value, but he still is doing it for the NFL prospect. So the NFL quarterback, he's still the best in the business right now.
I see you, but Tyler. Whatever.
Someone else who is a disappointment, and I will say this: he's not a big player. No one is going to play him in fantasy, but he was meaning something for the Detroit Lions offense. In these playoffs, he made a lot of big receptions. He was getting open, and he was still open this past week, except for he had 2 major drops that ended crucial drives for the Lions that ended up having them lose to the 49ers. And I'm talking Josh Reynolds. He had 1 reception on 4 targets. And like I said, 2 of those missed 3 targets were bad drops that ended in punts. And, well, we know how the end
turnovers
resulted. So,
yeah, definitely. I know we talked about him last week about kind of one of those guys that you didn't expect was going to do good and turned out to be a key part of that offense. I think it was last week versus the Bucs. But, definitely it hurt. It hurt.
He ended up literally ruining those drives, which, again, feel bad for the guy. He's a professional player. He's obviously not trying to do that, but you know what? He really did need to make another catch or 2.
Yep.
Man. Moving on to my disappointment of the week. A little hard to fault him, but Mark Andrews. He was coming off injuries, so there's that. But here's the thing. Yeah, get over it, Mike. It is the conference championship game. You're one of the best tight ends in the game. He's got to show up.
Dude, he's Achilles.
2 catches, 15 yards.
I'm with you, Jordan.
The same year.
I don't care, man. Dude, you are your quarterback's favorite target. Everybody knows it. You got to have two catches, 15 yards in the conference championship game when you're one of the best tight ends in the game. I get he was hurt. Okay, I'm not saying he should have had 10 catches and 3 touchdowns. 15 yards.
I agree with you, Jordan. I think to be one of the best, you're right. But I also think it's partly a fault of Lamar, I mean, he did have a lot of throwing yards, but all of them were to Zay Flowers. But I'm with you. Mark Andrews is a key part of that offense. Maybe they just they forgot about him. They were using Likely, but
maybe I got to rewatch that game from an NFL perspective. Maybe he was, a bigger distraction than I realized. If you watch the game, maybe he was blocking a lot for Zay. I don't know. At minimum, from a fantasy point of view.
From a fantasy point of view, I understand if you see Mark Andrews in the lineup, I totally get you expect big things from him, right? But you got to realize he was coming back from an ACL tear or something like that. Like, it was one of those major injuries. You're not supposed to come back in the season. Now, here's my thought. Mark Andrews, when he came back, I think I even said it in the last pod, he's not coming back to play. He's coming back to be a distraction. So other people leave Zay Flowers. They leave Isaiah Likely a little bit more open. That's the same thing Aaron Jones did when he came back and AJ Dillon had his big game because Aaron Jones was still there. That's the same thing that Jamar Chase did when T. Higgins had his big game. That's what these NFL teams do. They bring these big high profile players who are obviously skilled players to come in just to be distractions because they're still hurt. They can't make cuts like they want to. That's what I believed, and that's what I even said on the last pod. You can't expect much from Mark Andrews.
Conference championship game.
Yeah. I mean, look, Frank. We talked about Frank Ragnow last week, and that guy had 4 different things injured, and he still showed up.
Yeah,
and probably more physical.
His pinky is
his toe, his back, his neck, and his leg. All right.
I think his knee was in there too.
Pretty much his head, shoulders, knees, and toes, bro.
I don't know. If you couldn't have been more effective than that, why'd you suit up? It's the conference championship game.
Yeah, but
a distraction.
No, look, dude, I don't care. I don't care if you're a distraction. You're one of 11 on the field. You got to be fucking effective.
Yeah, and to Jordan's point, we're looking at disappointments, and you expected more. I expected more in Mark Andrews than what came out of that game. And if you didn't, that's fine. It's not your disappointment, bitch. Moving on. Honorable mentions. Take us away, Mike.
All right. I'll just putting it on a note that I disagree with your disappointment.
No one's ever going to read your note.
You took away the 100th episode. Damn it. I'm putting it back.
I took that. I told you I'd take that away. I'm actually disappointed you remembered it. But anyway, moving on to the honorable mentions here. So again, there's only 2 games going on. There's not many honorable mentions to be had, but the Kansas City defense just shut down they shut down the Baltimore Ravens as expected. It sucks, but you hate to say the Chiefs are the better team because guess what? They shut down Lamar. That's all it took. It took down shutting Lamar down, and that's what they did. So by doing that, Chiefs moved on. Zay Flowers, the taunting penalty, as we already talked about, that really devastated the last push that they could have had when they lost that drive. I think that really was just the hammer and the nail. Going on to the Lions game, I mean, if you didn't see it, then you really missed out. There was a 24-7 lead in the third quarter, and they choked it up. The 49ers came marching back. Tyler probably cried into a little bit of a little tizzy, but you know what? It's okay. Next season will be better because you have next year to be happy that Ben Johnson has remained with you.
Woo. Yeah, he did.
I know there's a lot of, and I think we have some time just to go over this for just like 2 seconds as we don't have much left of the pod, or the episode. But I do want to just say, Mike, you and I talked about this after the game, and we both agreed that a lot of people are giving Dan Campbell shit for his 4th down calls on going for it. And, you and I talked about this, but they were a good plays. It was not Dan. I mean, maybe it was the execution of the play, but the decision to go for it was not the wrong move. And it really does cause some controversy within the league. And it was the right call. Their kicker. I'm trying to look for the stat that I had. There it is. Michael Bagley was 9 of 20, which is 45% in his 48-plus yard attempts, which is the worst among high-volume kickers. And the Lions were 15 for 20 on converting 4th and 3 or fewer yards in the regular season, plus 2 of 2 in the postseason. That's 75% for just the regular season. I mean, not to drag this out, but it was the right call. It was just the execution wasn't there, or the team wasn't there. And it was the right call.
I agree with you 100%. I know, like you already said, we already talked about this. I know I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm somebody who, and it's easy to be saying behind the microphone on a camera on a podcast rather than actually doing it in Dan Campbell's shoes, literally on the sideline of a game. But I would go for it almost every time on anything less than 4th and 4. Because quite frankly, 4th and 4, 4th and 3, it doesn't matter. You're more than likely with a NFL roster. I do believe that on that push comes to shove, most of the time you're going to get that 3 yards. And maybe I'm just a little bit more aggressive. I tend to agree with Dan Campbell.
3 yards,
you know what, dude? Yeah, if you got
3 yards.
Okay, think about it, Jordan. Jordan, think about that. Think about what you just said. You're questioning that in 3 downs, you got 7. So that instantly averages out to 2 1/3. So why do you think that's so bad that you end up getting that extra 2/3 of a yard?
Is tough.
It's not. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that's what I would do, especially when you're in the offensive zone and you needed that drive, and he's 15 for 20 and 2 for 2 in the postseason, and he has a less than average kicker. I 100% agree with the call, regardless of those stats. And then you throw the stats in, it just justifies it even more.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think we're underestimating how hard it is to on 3rd down or on 4th
not for the Lions.
3 yards.
Lions were 75%. They had more. They had a better chance doing that.
More kudos to them. But
and Jordan, I will say a lot of people look at this. You know, hindsight's 20/20, right? This Lions team was known for their aggression. Dan Campbell was known for his great balls of fire. This was the move. If they didn't do this and they didn't make the field goal, consider the outrage. Hindsight's 20/20. That's what it comes down to, in my opinion.
Yeah, agree to disagree. But moving on.
Another thing I just want to mention too is we talk a lot about this podcast about fantasy, but more of a football stat that I know Mike already talked about these honorable mentions, but for both of those losses, the Ravens and the Lions, it wasn't an offense or a defense really that lost them the game. It was turnovers. The Baltimore Ravens had 3 turnovers against the Chiefs. So that defensive pick, yeah, that's right. And the Lions, they had 1 fumble, but still the turnovers are what cost teams games. But moving on, Jordan, take us into our conference round wrap up.
Yeah, so we have our predictions for the conference round. I had, personally had Ravens 49ers winning. I just had a feeling. But as we all know, Chiefs, they brought it home again. Mahomes, he's a fucking magician. He finds a way to win, which is the name of the game when it comes to football. And so Chiefs won. How did you guys feel about that Chiefs-Ravens game? Disappointed? You happy?
I picked the Chiefs. I fed into that week 1 game script that Roger Goodell put together, but instead it was the Super Bowl rematch script that he whipped out. So I did pick the Chiefs, and I didn't want them to win.
By Roger.
Yeah, I didn't want them to win. Maybe this is like the Rodgers 49ers revenge game where it's like, all right, they're finally going to get one.
So I'll say I went into it thinking the Ravens were going to do it. And to be fair, I was definitely a little bit biased because I wanted the Ravens to win. I picked the Ravens to win from the start of the playoffs, but I was
objective for once.
Yes, you were. Man. Good for you. I thought the Ravens were going to be a better team. And I'll be honest, going into the game, literally day of the game going into it, I started getting nervous thinking about what are the weapons that the Ravens really had? And the Ravens, in all seriousness, they rode the wave of Lamar Jackson's excellent season. Now, the Chiefs have a unreal defense, and that's what it took me to realize. I can't believe how good their defense actually was to shut down not only the MVP, the future MVP of this season, I'm sure, with Lamar Jackson, but I mean, Zay Flowers is the only one who really ended up doing anything. He had a good game, but then he still was the one who came up with that fumble. So given how good their defense was and holding the Baltimore Ravens, one of the highest scoring offenses in the league this year, to 10 points, I have them winning the Super Bowl over the 49ers.
Yeah, it was a tight game. Low-scoring game. Both defenses.
Man, I had the 49ers. It just felt like this is their year. I thought last year was their year until Purdy got hurt in the conference championship game, which is really the only reason the Eagles even made it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I took the Lions. I took the Lions. They were my less than objective pick, that Lions 49ers. Sir. And I did not win.
Sure.
I did not win.
Man. Well, overall, so we're looking at the brackets here, and who I think, just to break down how many points we have, how many games we've predicted correctly through the playoffs. Mike is at 5 points, Tyler's at 7, and then there's me at 9.
That first week killed me, man.
That first week killed both of you.
That first, what do you mean? Tyler got 3. He got exactly average. I got 1.
Yeah, that's true. And then everybody got 1 point this week.
Everybody got 1 point this week. Everybody got 3 last week. It's just that first week was a killer. But
man,
anyway, again, I'm thinking that it's going to be a good game for this Super Bowl. It's the game no one wants to see.
Yeah,
it's going to be a good game.
I'm going for this game. I really want to see the 49ers win. Obviously, I don't want the Chiefs to win. But I also think McCaffrey deserves one.
He does.
I picked the 49ers as my Super Bowl prediction at the beginning of playoffs, but just watching how the Chiefs have been playing, they're going to fucking win again.
See, I agree. Oh, wait, Jordan, are you choosing the 49ers, or are you who you think is going to win, or are you choosing the Chiefs?
Well, I'm choosing
the Chiefs.
I'll stick with my original prediction of the 49ers.
And that's very loyal of you. Since my teams are all gone, I can freely choose. And after looking at how these teams have looked, after seeing how good the Chiefs defense has been, and their offense is still cooking. And to be honest, this is also two-tiered because the 49ers have not been the team I expected in the playoffs either. They came down to the wire against both the Lions and the Green Bay Packers after they had a bye week. I mean, they have not been the team that I've expected in these. So I'm thinking the Chiefs are going to pull this through.
You know what, Mike, though? You lost. So you get a participation trophy. Jordan and I might tie for first.
Yeah. Man,
Ty, you're not going to tie for first. Jordan already has that wrapped up.
All right.
9 correct choices already.
I'll beat you. That's all that matters.
Moving on to a rather new segment for us, we decided to all three of us come up with a few fun facts for the season, just kind of random things that stick out to you as odd if you were to look at some of the stats. So
it's surprising, yeah.
Yeah, Tyler, you want to take us away with your first one?
Yeah, so my surprising stat of the 2023 fantasy season is Josh Allen. And it's not in the way that you think. I am a little surprised he was the number 1 overall fantasy player. I didn't expect that. I think we all kind of expected Mahomes. Maybe we did expect it. He was a first-round draft pick. I should take that back.
Mahomes
but really, I think the most surprising thing for me is he had the second most interceptions in the league, and I don't even have the stat for how many fumbles he had, but I'm sure it was quite a few, which I think it's pretty surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, what did you have as your fun fact on the season?
Well, I was actually just going to try and let Tyler know here that Josh Allen had 18 interceptions this season.
A lot.
18. And that's not including his 7 fumbles that he lost 4 of. That's actually alarming. That's literally 1 a game. Actually, no, it's 1 a week. He had 17 games.
It's quite a
fantasy week. That's quite a lot. But yeah, I'll move on to my surprising stat. And honestly, it comes down to what this season turned into and what I want to look at looking forward in fantasy futures, right? The tight end position, I've said this to you guys before in this podcast, I think the tight end position is going to be drastically different next year. Now, it's not like the seasons of the past where you basically have to get the Travis Kelce or the Mark Andrews, and then after that it's like, oh well, jam, like I've already lost the top two.
What do I bother
do?
taking?
Like
I don't want to waste
I what do I do with this now? All of a sudden, there's so many young, up and coming guys, or guys who have not been even that young, who are just good and emerging. Guys like David Njoku, Cole Kmet, TJ Hawkinson is up there again. Now you're introducing Sam Laporta, Ferguson on Dallas. You're introducing guys, Luke Musgraves on Green Bay. I mean, you have Dalton Kincaid when Dawson Knox is out. I mean, you have so many tight ends who are actually doing really, really well for fantasy that honestly, it's pushing my stock in the tight end position down draft boards probably 3-4 rounds.
I agree with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of great tight ends. It's definitely
oh my God, Evan Engram. I forgot about Evan Engram.
Yeah, it's definitely a tighter competition between who's the guy to look at, and seems to have a different opinion. You know, there's no real consensus anymore. I think next season will be even more so.
Yep.
Moving on to my surprising fact, is that you have Montgomery, third most touchdowns among running backs, and he was paired with a first-round pick. But not only that, Gibbs was number 8 in touchdowns. So Detroit Lions had 2 players in the top 8 in touchdowns by running backs. I just think that's a cool fact. Kind of reminds me of when the Saints had that Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram season where they both were just like, they're both just going to kill it every game.
Hey, we're going to run the ball. Try to stop us.
Exactly. Yep. You don't know who's running it. You don't know which one of them's getting it. And I'm very excited to see that duo continue to grow next season. I'm happy picking either of them. Montgomery's going to be higher on my draft board than he was last year. Personally, when he was with the Bears, wasn't a big fan, but he's gotten better.
Yep, I agree, and it's exciting because Monty has another year at least on his contract, which is really, it's hopeful for another playoff run for those Lions. But my second surprising fact of the 2023 fantasy season is Kyren Williams. Not only was this guy out for 4 games and he didn't play in week 18, he was sat by the Los Angeles Rams. He was number 5 as a running back in the 2023 season. And he was also a top 5 running back who I don't even think made many fantasy managers as benches. I don't even think he made it into the draft.
Nope.
So I think he was probably one of the best draft waiver wire picks you could have gotten, because I don't think in many leagues he did go drafted.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was somebody who really didn't end up doing a whole lot at all. Oh, hey, we got a visitor, guys.
Oh, hey, Rye.
Got a visitor with Rye.
Hello, Ryan.
Huh?
Am I allowed to talk?
You're allowed to talk. Go for it.
Yes. Joined by a Ravens fan.
I got to somehow figure out how to take off.
You're our first guest appearance.
Yeah, let's try and,
fellas.
We're talking about how Lamar totally doesn't deserve MVP.
He doesn't.
There we go.
Sorry, Rye. Okay, he can't hear me yet?
No, he can hear. He can hear you guys now.
Who doesn't deserve MVP?
Lamar.
He does or doesn't?
Does not. Sorry, buddy.
Why do you think he does not?
Because Ryan's a Ravens fan.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
It's like a little...
I'll just tease you, buddy. I'm only saying it because you're a Ravens fan. He totally deserves it.
I don't know enough about the stats he put up, but I know he broke a lot of records this year. He was the only quarterback now to have 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns in a game.
He killed it that game. He had like 40. He had like 40 points or something that game.
Tyler just hates Lamar.
I do.
Tyler hates your happiness.
I love Lamar, man. Lamar's awesome. Lamar's awesome. He's one of the most exciting quarterbacks to watch play.
Yeah. Until he blows out a knee. And then he's done.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen. Another guy, I actually, on that note, for my another surprising fact for me this year was the surprising QBs that actually emerged. All those first-year QBs, I'm talking C.J. Stroud, Jordan Love, and Anthony Richardson. Those guys, I know Anthony Richardson did, in fact, I think, blow out quite a few parts actually throughout the season, but he was looking solid. throughout the games that he did play. I mean, he's going to be a superstar going forward for a QB position.
Yeah, it's exciting to see a new class of quarterbacks.
And like they're all good.
Like Lamar.
It kind of feels like this class of quarterbacks turned out to be what everybody hoped the like Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, or not Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield draft.
That draft was supposed to be star-studded. It was supposed to be a star-studded draft, and it turned out to only be like one guy.
If you're a Dynasty League guy, take those guys.
That was, I think, 2019?
2019, I think.
Yeah.
And then, no, 2018, I think.
Maybe 2018.
2018, Baker went number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, 2018. But moving on to my second fun fact is going to be, Derrick Henry. So I think we're all kind of looking at him and his fantasy points, and we're like, he's top 10. No, because then he's just going to get hurt, and we're never going to hear from him again.
Are you
R.I.P. Calvin?
Because I'm here. Like, I don't think. I mean, they're saying the Ravens are going to lose J.K. Dobbins though to free agency.
He's done.
The NFL is going to lose J.K. Dobbins to just perennial injuries.
Yeah, nobody's going to pick him up. But Derrick Henry. I found it surprising. He was only number 8 in fantasy points, but he was number 2 in yards on the season.
He didn't score.
He didn't score as much. He also didn't get. Yeah. That surprised me, Jordan. When you actually posted that, I actually was very surprised at that. I didn't know he was that high in yardage.
It does make me question a little bit. I'm like, okay, depending on what team he goes to next year, I might pick him up. Like
he might be that sleeper that we're all looking for, actually.
We're all expecting him to age, but if he goes to the right team with the right offensive line after putting up number 2 most yards on the season, he's not done.
No, I agree. That really alarmed me. So it's McCaffrey then him?
Yes.
As far as rushing?
Yes.
Wow. That blows my mind.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. Tyler, what's your third stat?
Yeah, he was a quiet player. But my third surprising fact of the 2023 fantasy season was Puka Nacua, another guy who was off radars. I don't think anyone really drafted him, but he ended up number 4 on the fantasy season as a wide receiver. And I'm going to make a statement and just say he might have been one of the best waiver wire pickups in fantasy.
Who was the best? Him and Kyren Williams.
The scary thing is the only person who I think would question that would be Kyren Williams, who was on the same team. That's the scary part. The Rams had 2 great pickups, and they were both irrelevant and for fantasy as far as draft boards go, and then they were both top-notch pickups in the waiver wire.
Absolutely.
Guys who this guy did not pick up at all because he didn't pay attention.
I don't pay attention to fantasy.
All right. No, it's still going, right?
Oh, no, it's still going.
Still says it's recording. Don't you worry. Don't be interrupting my segment right here. I got my third stat coming up, my third surprising stat.
All right.
And it happens to be, hey, remember at the draft time when we were all talking about Houston Texans and how shitty they were going to end up being and how, there was one player you wanted to get, and that player happened to be a guy called Dameon Pierce?
Yep.
I think that's the one...
Wait, that's what he was called?
Texan didn't want. It's the one Texan. Everyone else blew up. C.J. Stroud, phenomenal quarterback. Tank Dell, Nico Collins, startable wide receivers.
Devin Singletary.
Dalton Schultz be a top 12 guy.
Yeah.
At tight end. Now, the only guy you didn't want. In fact, he wasn't even the number one
of the biggest
running back on his team.
One of the biggest disappointments on the season.
Oh, 100%.
Easily. All right, moving on to my last fun fact of the season, actually, is going to be that Mike Evans, while he did in total fantasy points, he was like top 5. He was tied for most touchdowns on the season, but only 11th in average points. That kind of surprised me a little bit.
Did it surprise you, Ryan?
Most touchdowns. Who was he tied with most touchdowns with? McCaffrey?
No. Most.
Do you have that stat, Jordan?
Let's see.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He was kind of quiet this year. I feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers weren't that great of a team at 9-8, but they still snuck into the playoffs.
The scary thing is,
It's funny. You had the Bengals at 9-8 in last place in their division.
Mike Evans was scary.
It was Tyreek Hill.
That doesn't surprise me. Mike Evans was so good in the beginning, and he really tailed off at the end. Like if you look the last half of the season, he was probably somewhere in that wide receiver 20 range when he was literally wide receiver like 2 behind Tyreek in the first half of the season.
Yep, I agree with. Actually, maybe he was tied. I'm looking at this just Fox Sports, and it looks like they're saying that Mike Evans had more touchdowns, but I believe you, Jordan. I trust you. Oh yeah, receiving touchdown. Oh no, you're right. He was tied with Tyreek.
Let's
just cut that out. All right, just
that was wrong.
All right, so do we want to wrap this up with our Duel of the Fools segment?
Yeah, let's just give us a recap of Duel of the Fools from our conference championship
week. Only because I'm winning.
Yeah, it'll be nice. Jordan had a great week. Jordan had a fantastic week.
Did almost perfect.
I had my best week of the season, and of course, Jordan had to one-up me.
Well, we're starting off with Brock Purdy and Jared Goff. Brock Purdy ran away with that. Isaiah Pacheco and Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey was the superior player. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I know we talked a little about this earlier, but David Montgomery pulled ahead. Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. Congratulations, Mike. You were the only one who saw that coming.
Only one.
Woo! Rashi Rice and Brandon Ayuk. Unfortunately, it was Brandon Ayuk. As a Lions fan, that's very unfortunate. Josh Reynolds, who we also talked about earlier, and Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers pulled away with that. Nelson Aguilar and Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams surprisingly took that matchup.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe you guys picked that. And I couldn't believe you got it right.
I couldn't either.
Did.
Salty.
You're surprised of the week,
yes.
Lastly, we had Isaiah Likely and Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce proved all the haters wrong, but none of us were haters.
Big dogs. Kelsey's still top dog, man.
Haters gonna hate.
Okay, Mike started singing. We know we got to end it. Oh my god! Yeah, bye. Yeah.
Yeah, on that
you
note,
just broke,
guys. Thanks for having me.
Mike broke the internet.
Mike broke every listener's speakers ever. No one can listen to Mike. You broke podcasting.
You just went from like 50 to 0.
We still got the sitting 50. Me and Tyler are still playing on repeat.
So to end the Duel of the Fools, I had 2 right. Mike had 5, and Jordan took the week with 7.
Yeah, I did.
That made our to date a lot closer. Look at that.
All right.
Yes, it did. I had 25. Mike has 26. Jordan has 27. I still win in weeks, though, with 4 correct wins. Weeks 1. Mike and Jordan are tied at 2. So we will reintroduce Duel of Fools next episode, going into that Super Bowl matchup. So looking forward to that. It's going to be an abridged duel, but it'll be a duel. But anyway, thank you all for listening, and feel free and please subscribe to us on YouTube at Fantasy Fools Pod, as well as give us a follow on Spotify, Fantasy Fools Podcast. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your pretty much football-less week.
Oh, come on. We got the Pro Bowl to look forward to.
Oh, can't wait for the Pro Bowl. But anyway, thanks for joining us, and have a great weekend. See you next episode.
See you next.